Hello everyone. Today's poem is Bei Wind, a Bei Wind from the Book of Songs. Before we start this poem today, I would like to share my good news with you all. After weeks of quarantine and travel, finally, I arrived in Beijing in September 24th. And this video is the first video recorded in Beijing when I finally returned to my home in Beijing. So you can see the map. I'm in Beijing, right? Okay, let's get to the poem. The title, 谷风, means the wind in the valley. So if you read some of the poems in Book of Songs, you know the wind is something significant, the state wind, right? The poems from different states was so-called as wind, like this one, from the Bei state. So the poem in this category, in this subchapter, was so-called as Bei Wind. So the wind normally was taken as something everywhere, and it was changing all the time, and it was the real substance of all creatures, the society, the human beings. So when we examine the winds flowing around, we know two things: how the nature it was reflected by the wind, the society was reflected by the wind, and how the changes are, it was also reflected by the wind. So the title 谷风, the wind, I do believe it has all the meanings I just shared with you. And the 谷 in modern Chinese, it basically means two meanings, has two meanings. First thing first, the valley between mountains, and especially the valley with a little river in it. So a valley should have a river in it. If it doesn't have a creek, has a small river, it could not be called as a valley or gu in Chinese. The second meaning in modern Chinese means the grain, the food. But in the ancient time, these two meaning was represented by totally two different characters. So in this poem, in that time, the meaning is very, very clear. The character Gu has the meaning of the valley, has nothing to do with the food, with the grain. So that's the title. And the valley, what's the significance of a valley? Or what does a valley represent? I do believe they share a lot of the similarity with the wind, because in the ancient believing by Chinese, the creatures was by the heaven and the earth, and the valley was the best place to have the both characters very clearly outstanding represented in a valley, because the mountain was the best part on the earth. So in the ancient Chinese believing, the mountain has a lot of the good things, the benefits. So it was so called as the 山林之力, the interests. So the best interests that the Mother Earth gave us was all on the mountains, and of course in the valleys. And also the valley has a river. So the river, the water is the blessing, is the gifts from the heaven. So in the form of a rain, and finally it became a small river running in the valley, and finally go to the basin, go to the plain, became a big wide river, the Yellow River, the Yangtze River, whatsoever. So all the creatures basically was benefit, was cultivated by both the heaven and the earth, or by the valley. So far, the title, The Wind in the Valley, gave us a very, very clear clue that this poem was something about the Mother Earth, about some of the changes, because of the wind normally is reflect the changes or the local flavor, because different places has different winds. Let's say Beijing has the Beijing style wind. Shanghai has the Shanghai style wind. So the wind reflect two things: the change, because sometimes big wind, sometimes small wind. That's the change. That's by the heaven. That's the power of the heaven. And also the winds reflect the local flavor. Okay, that's the topic. Let's go to this poem. It's a long poem, so I will go through it very briefly, and just focus or gave some of the details of the difficulties or something different from the modern language. One more thing is the traditional or the general explanation to this poem is about a couple. The wife was complaining to her ex-husband. She was abandoned by her husband. But anyhow, that was too wrong. Let's see this poem, and you can also have your explanation or your own opinion about this poem. And here is mine. 习习谷风，以阴以雨 The mild, endless wind from the valley. It brings the cloudy weather. Sometimes it brings the rains to us. It's all the gifts the heaven to us gave to us, right? Okay, the second sentence. 黾勉同心，不宜有怒 I should do my best. I should try my best to share the same interest, to share a common ground with you. I shouldn't be such angry. So the angry, the nu, the character angry, in modern language is a very normal word. But in the Book of Psalms time, that was a serious word. That means a serious, significant aftermath. Normally, the war, the people was killed. So that's the meanings. So because in the Book of Psalms, it's hard to taste this character, to understand this character, but we have a very, very good history book, 左传. So if you have the interest to read that history book, written some 2,500 years before, whenever the character Nu appeared in that book, someone was killed or a war happened, because the Lord should be behave decent, should be behave quite mild in a typical Chinese man. When the Lord feels angry, he should do something. Something must happened. So if we are a ancient Chinese some 2000 years ago, when we read this poem, the first two pair of sentences is very serious. He said, I shouldn't be such angry. Some serious things happened already. Okay, the third pair of sentences. 采葑采菲，无以下体. So the character Feng and Fei appeared to be two type of grass, but here it used the pronunciation, the sound, to refer the forfeit land that the poet was living, and some upper level people was trying to dig the interest, to take the interest from his land, and without mercy, 无以下体. So some senior people was taking the interest, was from the land of the Bei state, I should say, without mercy. Okay, the fourth sentence. 德音莫违，及尔同死. We all shouldn't violate the moral standard. We shouldn't violate the code of conduct, because someday we will all die, and we will die together. So die together here, actually, it doesn't mean they die at the same date or the same place. It means they are from the same big family. They share the same family name. Or it could mean they share the same ultimate destination after their death. So this is also another possibility. So the first paragraph basically is a summary of the whole poem. He recalled the philosophy that we are both brought up by the heaven and the earth, and the heaven and earth was still behaved as usual. It sometimes brings the cloudy weather. Sometimes it brings the rain. The rain is a very, very good thing for all the creatures. And he even blamed himself. I shouldn't be such angry. I should try my best to share the same interest, to stand on the same ground with you. But he also tells us the reason. His brother, the big brother, has taken too much interest from his state, and without mercy, 无以下体, without mercy. But still, the poet tried to persuade himself. We are the same family. We have the same royal blood, and one day we will be buried at the same place, right? We still share the final destinations. That's the most important common ground for these two, the poet and the other guy, someone very likely superior than the poet. Okay, the second paragraph. 行道迟迟，心中有违. So finally, I start my journey reluctantly, slowly, because in my heart, I feel something not comfortable. It doesn't comply to my feelings. So actually, this was telling us he didn't want to start this journey because it violates the will from his heart. Okay, the second pair of sentence. 不远伊迩，薄送我畿. So I don't, your place is so far, but I didn't mind. 不远伊迩, 不远 means I don't mind. Your place is so far from me. And from my capital area, I send something quickly, hurriedly to you. So, Ji is also a very interesting character in this poem as well, because Ji normally refers to the capital area. But in the Zhou dynasty, the capital area is not Bei Wind. So this reflects something very subtle. In the Zhou dynasty, the formal capital area, the Bei state, is the formal capital area. In the Shang dynasty, the people still claim their place as the capital area. So, which means they see themselves with very, very proud feelings. They think they are very proud of their place and their status. 谁谓荼苦，其甘如荠. Tu is a type of grass, very bitterly. Ji is a grass with the taste of sweet. 谁谓荼苦，其甘如荠. It expressed the feeling that even though the reality was bitterly, but he take this reality as a candy, as very sweet. So here is also some of the feelings from the poet himself, because he has taken a bunch of wealth, gift, to send to his body somewhere far, far away. And the journey was a very, very hard and a long journey. So this is all the things bitterly. And but he, from his own heart, from his feelings, he take all these things, hard things, bitter things, as a candy, as very sweet. And the last sentence, he gave us the reason. 宴尔新昏，如兄如弟. So I am going to your weddings, and I'm your brothers. I'm your little brothers. But so here also give us something quite subtle. The poet also has a very, very strong possibility. He doesn't has the royal blood of Zhou dynasty. So which means, because in the first paragraph, we think he has some of the royal blood, because he still claimed that my state was still the capital area, right? So this poet very likely has the royal blood of the Shang dynasty, because in the second paragraph, he points out my place is a capital area. So this means this implies he has the royal blood. And the last sentence in this paragraph, he said, 如兄如弟, which means we are not real brothers. We are just like brothers, right? So in this case, this poet, the most possibility of this poet, he is a person with the royal blood of the Shang dynasty. We will have more clues on this in the third paragraph. Let's see. 泾以渭浊，时时其止. The real sequence of this sentence should be 时其止，泾以渭浊. So it means the Jing River was a very clear river with very clear water and along its bound. But finally, the Jing River was muddy by the Wei River. So we have a idiom, very frequent, a normal idiom today. 泾渭分明. So the Jing River and the Wei River is the very, very important two rivers around the capital in the Zhou dynasty, like the map. And the Jing River, in most of the history times, it was clear. The river is very clear. And the Wei River was muddy. And these two rivers finally joined together. And at the joint, we can see the clear river doesn't melted with the muddy river of the Wei River for quite a while. So it's a very, very interesting, phenomenon. So even we have the idiom 泾渭分明, which means the clear water from the Jing River was clearly separated from the muddy river, from the Wei River. Even the two river was jointed finally. So here it means the poet and the other guy, from the outlook and maybe from all aspects, they shows a totally different aspects. And here is also another clue that the poet was not the royal blood, because they cannot melt it together. Their appearance and their character, their tradition, all the things, they cannot melt it together. They didn't share the same blood, right? Okay, let's continue. 宴尔新昏，不我屑矣. So I'm coming a long way to attend your wedding, but you don't give me a shit. The character 谢 has an explanation clean. So 不我屑矣 could be also be explained as the bridegroom doesn't take me as a decent, a clean gentleman. So he thinks I'm dirty, right? But so both way, in either way, 不我屑矣 means the host, the bridegroom, doesn't take me seriously. He didn't take the poet seriously. He looked down to the poet. Okay, let's see the next sentence. 勿视我梁，勿发我笱. Don't went to my mountains. Don't take my fishing basket. So this is quite a sort of the idiom in those days. So this means don't take my money. Don't take my interest away. Don't rob me. So here it shows that the poet became a little bit angry, right? He came a long way with a lot of good gifts with his wealth to went to this guy's wedding. But this guy looked down on me. And so this made the poet so angry. I won't give all this wealth, my gift, to you, because you looked down on me. Okay, let's continue. 我躬不阅，遑恤我后. My body doesn't feel comfortable because you look down on me, right? not to say my later generations. So here actually shows the poet was a big guy, very likely the state lord of the Bei state, or the biggest family in the Bei state that has the royal blood of the Shang dynasty, right? Because when he thinking something seriously, he not only include himself, he also think about something long after him. His his sons, his grandsons, his descendants, right? 遑恤我后. So the third paragraph basically gave us a snapshot when the poet finally arrived to the wedding, the place of the wedding, and by the two river. He also gave us a very clear indication. The wedding happened somewhere at the Jing River and the Wei River. So, which is the capital area, right? And it could be the King of Zhou, or it could be some of the most powerful Zhou families who lived in the capital area. Now the fourth paragraph. 就其深矣，方之舟之；就其浅矣，泳之游之。So when I encountered a big river, very deep river, I will use the big boat to cross the river. When I came across a shallow water, a shallow river, I will swimming or just walk through it. So here it also indicates the poet was someone, a very senior people, because by the code of conduct, the person who can use the boat, so-called as 方之舟之, Fang means to use two boats tied together. So the two boats was paralleled to make it a bigger boat. So this boat could only be used by the state lord who was under the King of Zhou. And if the king will use the type of Zhao, which means the king will use a lot of boats paralleled from one bond to the other side of the river. So finally, all these boats make a floating bridge. So that's the style, or that's the boat for a king, a floating bridge. So here, the first sentence, 就其深矣，方之舟之. First thing first, it said, I am the state lord. I'm the person who just below the king, right? And the first and the second pair of sentence basically is telling or expressing the poet's own feelings. I'm doing everything per the code of conduct and per the nature's rules, right? The deep, big river, I will use the boat. The shallow water, I will just swim or walk across it. So I'm a very wise and I'm a very disciplined Lord, right? He's a Lord. And sometimes there's an interest. Sometimes there's some lost, 何有何亡. So, which means sometimes something good happens. Sometimes some bad thing happens. I will try my best to make it. 迎免求之. I will try my best to do my duty as a lord. The last sentence, 凡民有丧，匍匐救之. Whenever the people was in a disaster or the people was losing their lives, I will crawl on the ground to save their life, to save them. So 匍匐 today it means crawling on the ground. But maybe in that time that's a different meaning. But anyhow, it means to try his best to save his people. So the fourth paragraph actually is some of the rethinking by the poet. He was looked down by the king. Here we are quite sure, right? By the King of Zhou. And he first thing first, he was so angry, right? And the second thing, he just tried to rethinking his behavior, to try to find some of the thing or the reason from his own part. But finally, he said, I'm a so nice state lord. I do the things per the code of conduct. I do the things per the nature's law. And I do my best to make the interest, to bring the interest to my people. And I try my best to save my people when they're in a disaster. So I'm a very, very good and kind state lord. And why the King of Zhou looked down on me? Why he take me so bad? A big, big question. Let's continue. The fifth paragraph. 不我能续，反以我为仇. So the normal sentence should be like this. 不以我能续，反以我为仇. Very simple, right? That guy, the King of Zhou, didn't take me as a person who are very supportive, who do his duty to serve the Zhou dynasty, to serve the heaven well. On the contrary, the King of Zhou, that guy, take me as an enemy, as a foe. So the Lord, the poet, the Bei Lord, the poet himself was struggling in his mind. In the fourth paragraph, he was trying to find some of the defects or something wrong he had done. But finally he concluded, I'm a very, very wise, I'm a very, very nice guy. I do all the things a good Lord should do. I do them all. So in this paragraph, in the fifth paragraph, the poet contributes the situation, the reason to that guy, to the King of Zhou. So he just take me as an enemy for no reason, and he don't see all my efforts, all my what I've done. I'm such a good Lord, right? Okay, let's continue. 既足我德，古用不受. So he take my ancestor as a blessing, right? But anyhow, the offerings, the sacrifice, he didn't use my sacrifice. He didn't take my sacrifice and the offerings. So here is my explanation. 祖, the ancestors. 我德, so which means the Zhou dynasty. Basically, in the surface, they regard the Shang dynasty still has the blessing from the heavens. So that's this sentence means 既足我德. So the Zhou dynasty still take my ancestors as who can have the access to the blessing from the heaven. But 古用, 古 the goods, 用 means to offer some sacrifice. So here 古用is a general term to referring the sacrifice, the ceremony to the ancestors, to the heaven, because the blessing from the heaven is from the is a sort of the mutual things. The people who still alive, they offering the sacrifice, the good to the heaven, and they, in return, the heaven, the ancestors, bless them with fortune, with good luck. So this sentence actually is a very, very serious thing, because the Zhou king doesn't let or take the offering, the sacrifice from the poet, which means the poet has no way to make the sacrifice, has nothing to offer to the heaven, to the ancestors, and finally he would not be blessed by the heaven, he would not have the lucky from his ancestors. So this is a very, very, or maybe the most serious things for the people, especially the Lord in those times. Okay, let's see. 西域孔玉居，及尔颠覆. So here reflects some of his reflects that the poet has done a lot of things to brought up that guy, the king of Zhou, 西域. So those days I brought up you, but they brought up the efforts I brought up you maybe go all wrong until you finish off. So this means the poet think from now on until the king of Zhou finally passed away, the king of Zhou will look down on him, and the king of Zhou will not remind the goodness that this poet has done to him, because the poet apparently is senior in the age, and he has done a lot of things to brought up the king of Zhou, who is the bridegroom in this poet. Next sentence. 既生既育，比于余毒. The king of Zhou has been given birth to. The king of Zhou has been brought up. I have done a lot for him, but finally he take me as a poison. So the fifth paragraph basically is still the feelings and the thoughts of the poet, and finally he concluded that the king of Zhou treat him as an enemy, and this fact will never be changed even until the king of Zhou died. And here he also expressed some of the regret of himself. He has contributed, he has done so many things to brought up the king of Zhou, but finally, so what a regretful feelings the poet has. The last paragraph. 我有止序，以以御冬. I have a big storage, I have a big warehouse which was prepared to survive the long, cold winter. And now I'm coming a long way to your wedding, and you take all my wealth to dealing with your inability. 穷 means a dead end, a dead road, not poverty in that time. So 以我欲穷, it means the king of Zhou used this opportunity, used the wealth, the gift the poet gave him to manage his way through some of the difficulties. So we don't know what's the difficulties of the king of Zhou, but the king of Zhou has a big problem, and he used this opportunity, and he used the wealth of the poet from the Bei state to dealing with that difficulty. 有光有愧，既以我嗣. There's something shining, and there's something very expensive. Anyhow, I present them and lay them around, and finally I send them as a gift to you. So this sentence basically is describing the gifts, the wealth that the poet sent to the king of Zhou. So apparently, from the descriptions, something shining, the bronze ware, right? Something very expensive, the silk clothes, the chariots, whatsoever. So the jewelries. So this is a final conclusion or the final feelings of the poet. He has recalled what is fault, why the king of Zhou has taken him as an enemy, and he has no fault from his side. And finally he concluded that the king of Zhou don't recognize his goodness, his goodwill to him at all, and take him as an enemy. But anyhow, he has already on the side of this wedding ceremony, he has brought so many gifts, wealth for the Zhou king, and finally he decided, let's lay them all, present them all to the king of Zhou and send these things to him. And the last sentence is still a blaming to the king of Zhou, and also a sorrow by himself. 不念昔者，一于来计. The king of Zhou, he don't remind me at all. He don't remind the old friendship, the old person. The old person refers to the poet himself, or maybe even including his father. So this state, this family has done a lot things for the king of Zhou, but anyhow, the king of Zhou didn't remind that at all at this time, and the poet has to satisfy himself by the last sentence, 依于来计. Myself has already come to this site. What can I do? I have brought all the gifts here. What can I do? Just give them to the king of Zhou, no matter how he take me, or even he treat me as an enemy. So this is a poem about a very, very strange wedding, and I do believe this is the royal blood, royal family of the Shang dynasty. They has been looked on at the very beginning of the Zhou dynasty, but until this king of Zhou, until this wedding ceremony, finally he realized that the king of Zhou take them as an enemy. All the goodwill, all the friendship, all the good relationships between the Bei state and the king of Zhou finished off at this time from this wedding. Okay, that's for today. Bye bye.